This is Jeffrey from GoodHealthAdvocate.com, and today we're going to make a spicy cucumber salad. So to start everything off, I got a nice big English cucumber. These guys are really easy to use. They're full of water, which is really nice. They also have a great texture, and the skin is really soft, so you don't have to peel it. We're going to go ahead and just trim it down into 2 pieces. I got my trusty mandolin here with a really thin cutting blade for julienning. So we're going to go ahead and just run this through, and we're just making like little thin, almost like spaghetti size cuts. Now you want to be really careful when you use one of these. They always, depending on which model you get, doesn't matter, they'll come with a guard. I suggest you use that guard unless you're very, very comfortable and you don't mind cutting yourself every once in a while. Now I'm not cutting the cores, but if you want to go ahead and juice these with some water and make some really delicious cucumber water, you can do that. Or if you want, you can just go ahead and throw it into the blender, and we're actually going to that's going to be an ingredient in the vinaigrette that's going to go with the salad. So either way you want to use it is fine. Go ahead and start gathering everything in the mixing bowl. The next thing we're going to cut up is zucchini, and we're going to cut that up just the way our cucumber was with the mandolin. So go ahead and add that to the bowl. The next thing we're going to add is just a little bit of pepper. We don't want to put too much in there, but a little bit is really nice. So I'm only going to put a little section of each one of these and use the rest for something else. Now sometimes if you want to be a little bit fancier, you can cut just a little bit out of each pepper, and what this is going to do is give you just a little bit thinner of a julienne, but by no means is it necessary. It's just going to make a little nicer appearance. And then we're going to slice this really thinly because we don't want this to be too big, just nice and thin. So take as much time as you need and just slice it very carefully. There we go. And I didn't mention this, but we are actually going to use a little bit of this pepper, and might as well use a little bit of this one. Now this is a great way to use the piece of the pepper that isn't really easy to cut. So sometimes the bottoms and the tops are a little bit more difficult to cut. They get in the way of making a really nice julienne. But a good way to use them without having any waste is to go ahead and put them in our blender, and they're going to be part of the vinaigrette as well. Next we have some tomatoes, just some nice ripe vine ripened tomatoes. We'll go ahead and cut that into 4 pieces, and then we're going to go ahead and scoop out the centers. Now obviously I'm cutting towards myself, so you want to be really careful. And all that leaves us with is just the the seeds out and just the outer meat. Okay, now again, we're not going to have any waste here because these actually are loaded with flavors, and actually, you know, sometimes you'll see these used and they're called like tomato gems or something like that, and they are full of flavor when your tomatoes are nice and ripe anyway. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just throw those into my blender because we're not going to have any waste here. And the meat has a much nicer texture in a salad. You know, there's a little bit of bite to it rather than just the softness of the innards. So we're going to go ahead and julienne these guys up. And we'll go ahead and just toss those in the bowl. Now the last thing is something that you might not normally put in this kind of salad, but it's really nice because it has the sweetness, and it's just a yellow peach. So basically what we want to do is just take the pit out, and hopefully, you know, sometimes they come out really easily and sometimes they don't. It's not terribly ripe, it's hard to get out, but that wasn't too tough. So we're just taking the pits out. Sometimes you need to cut it into 3 or 4 pieces in order to be able to remove the pit. But then all we're going to do is just cut this down into smaller pieces. Basically you can do a dice, or you can kind of just do a rough chunk. It doesn't really matter how you cut it. You could actually just leave it like this. Sometimes it makes your food a little bit more interesting, to, you know, a nicer presentation when you vary the way that things are cut. So in the bowl right now, basically everything's a julienne, so having one ingredient in there that's diced makes it a little bit more interesting. So we're going to go ahead and dice the peach. Now this is a great way to add some natural sweetness rather than just adding some sugar or you know, some other kind of sweetener, because it has a way of balancing out the acids that we're actually going to put in the vinaigrette for it. Alright, now that's all our vegetables and stuff going into the bowl. Now what we have to do is make our vinaigrette. And this is going to be really simple. Basically I have the ingredients in my blender that I've already added, the tomatoes, the cucumber, and the pieces of bell pepper. I'm also going to add some apple cider vinegar, some chili flakes. Now you can use any kind of chili. You could use just a few strips of jalapeno if you wanted. That would be great. And I have a little piece of the peach that I reserved, and this is just going to be a little bit more sweetness. Just like the peach is going to be the whole chunks of sweetness, we're going to have a little bit of sweetness to balance the acids, and that's going to help draw out all the flavor of the vegetables in the salad. So I'm just going to cut this into a few pieces to make it easier for the blender. Well, the last ingredient, which is optional and I was about to forget, is just a little bit of tamari. Now I recommend that you try to consume as little salt as possible, so feel free to leave this out entirely. But if you are going to use it, try to be careful with it. Don't add any more than you need. I got about a tablespoon here. So we're going to go and blend this up. And that's pretty good. Now we're not going to need this whole thing for this salad, so you can go ahead and reserve the rest of it for some just regular leaf lettuce salads or whatever you might be making in the future. So we're going to go ahead and pour about half of that on there. Give it a quick toss. Now I like this served right away. But if you want to let this marinate for, you know, a couple hours or even overnight, basically what will happen is the vinegar in the dressing will break down the vegetables and they'll release a lot of their water. And they'll be a little bit less crisp. But all the flavors will be there. But I just recommend, you know, eating it right away if that's possible, because that's when you get all the texture of the vegetables. Alright, there we go. That's ready to eat. Go ahead and make ourselves a plate. Now, if you're serving this as just one course for the family, you know, you could probably, this would be enough for about 4 people. You know, if they're going to be having a few other courses. Now, if you're a low-fat vegan, you may this may just make 1 serving. There you go. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to stop by my website at goodhealthadvocate.com.